Hello everybody and welcome back to Pravus Gaming and More Democracy 3 Australia, playing on maximum difficulty. And how about that Super Bowl a couple days ago, right? Yeah, sports. I sure do know a lot about them. Not at all, I lie. I'm not much of a sports guy. Politics is my arena, not football or soccer. American football, since some people don't always say it the same way. Although even I can recognize the Patriots had one heck of a comeback, so kudos to them. But you guys aren't here to hear me make sports commentary, you want political and gaming commentary. So okay, let's move on into year 5. It is election year in Australia, which I'm not really worried about the election, to be honest. And part of that is because Australia has mandatory voting. So typically in another nation that does not have mandatory voting, you might be polling around 60 or 70%, but the voter turnout is really going to be important. Do your targeted voter demographics come out and vote for you? And if not, you're in trouble. The polls may look great, but you'll still lose. Not as easy for that to happen in Australia. If you're polling really well at like 60 or 70%, which is kind of close to where we are right now, everyone has to come out and vote. The polls are probably going to be very accurate. We're probably going to be fine. So I'm not especially worried about it. We did have a failed assassination attempt, though, by the Liberals, which is great, so we need to be a little bit concerned about that. But no one is in our party, by the way. Even now, with like 66% of the vote, 0 members. It's like when you invite people over to a Super Bowl party, and then not a single person shows up. You know, everyone RSVP, they're like, yeah, I'll be there, but then no one showed up. They're like, well, I had other things to do, and I figured other people would be there, so it's okay. Nope. And now I feel despised and unpopular. So thank you for ruining my self-esteem. Alright, so a few things we want to do. First off, it looks like Ghettos is about to go away as of next turn, which is great. Pollution's getting quite bad, and I need to be concerned about the environment. I really do. I'm aware that the doctor's strike has not gone away the way I wanted it to, which really annoys me, by the way. Very irritated by this. Because it means I'm going to have to spend some more frickin' money trying to get the state healthcare stuff to go away. It's like I was, what, like 1% of funding off? Like this much was probably all it would have taken. But little did I know, and I'm not really eager to spend the political capital on it right now. I have more pressing issues. Maybe next video or next term, I might fix this. But for now, let's kind of move on with some stuff I had already planned out. Namely, I want to raise up the carbon tax. Now, I'm doing this for a couple reasons. One, I need more money. I'm only making a surplus of about 8 billion. This will get us an extra 10 billion to work with. It also slows down GDP growth, which is actually going to be good for helping the environment. And that's actually about it. I mean, it reduces CO2 emissions and increases energy efficiency because there's a direct market incentive for companies to start using green energy like solar energy and stuff that's supposedly more efficient, even though the capacity is lacking, to say the least. It doesn't actually improve the environment all that much. Really, reducing CO2 emissions by taxing it so that people are incentivized not to use CO2, I mean, it does that pretty well, but it doesn't actually seem to improve the environment very much. It just makes everyone angry. But it makes me money, so we're going to go with it anyway, and slowing down that GDP growth a little bit so that we don't trigger the water shortage event is actually okay. There's plenty of time for us to get that GDP maxed out, but I need a surplus to start paying down some of that debt, increase my credit score, and then I need to have certain policies in place to protect the environment. Once that's done, I'll open the floodgates, and we'll improve the GDP like crazy. Along similar lines, let's just go ahead and pass Biofuel Subsidies. It's a pretty good system. Basically, what we're doing is we're going to take corn or something, and we're going to turn it into ethanol, and use that for gasoline. We have a lot of corn-based ethanol in the United States. Big part of the industry. Nebraska, which is a state that I lived in for a few years, is like practically all corn. Biofuel Subsidies is a very big part of their economy, as it is, but now the food prices will go up as a result because, well, turns out that if you start using food to make fuel, there's less supply of food to consume and to eat, and therefore prices go up. So that's kind of how it is. Farmer income goes up, though, because we're basically directly subsidizing them. Oil demand going down is going to be pretty nice for us, all in all. Actually, we can take a look at the oil demand here. That's the oil supply. That's not what I'm talking about. Oil demand has been going up quite a bit lately, which is resulting in the oil prices going higher, which, you know, actually is not nearly as effective as you might think. You'd think that if oil prices start to go up, you know, everyone's losing some income. You'd see a modifier that says, oh, look, the poor have less income. And it is. It's in motorist income, but it's like practically nothing. Now, part of that's because it's like hovering right in the middle. If it were down, their income would go up. If it were higher, it would go down. But Even so, just keep more money in the pockets of the people and make the farmers happy. I mean, really, let's be honest. That's the main reason I'm doing it. It's not just to improve the environment. It's because I want the farmers to like me because they give me more political capital, and they're an important voter demographic that I need to win. And I'm doing pretty well with them. So let's move on into the next turn. Hopefully we don't die. Nope. Liberal plot, though. The Freedom League is taking things a little bit too far. Credit rating upgraded. We have an A. I got an A, said Charlie Brown. And Ghettos is now at an end, which means our quality should improve, as well as a few other things, including immigration, I think. Let's see, how's that doing? Okay, so immigration is ticking up. Need to be careful about that. Immigration is a fairly good thing. Fairly good. In small amounts. Reasonable small amounts. It gets too large, you can create all sorts of racial tensions and stuff like that. It even says that right here. Too much immigration too fast can lead to racial tensions developing. So yeah, that could be a serious problem, but if our GDP doesn't ever get maxed out, then maybe we're going to be okay on this. It's definitely something we want to keep an eye on, and if it looks like it's getting out of hand, we'll want to increase our border controls, and since we are conservative religious, we might just want to ban foreign church service, which we have found to be one of the few ways to actually curtail out-of-control immigration. But I digress. Let's move on with the game. I'm going to pass a few more policies, namely to improve health, since we don't have our state healthcare working to our advantage right now. What about, you know what, why don't we do organic farming subsidies? It's a little bit expensive, but farmers will be so happy, and their membership goes up, which is really good for us because they're going to be one of my most loyal voter demographics. Capitalists don't like the distortion of the free market, but the health goes up because we're not consuming, you know, pesticide-covered poison food or something like that. Personally, I don't think it's that bad, but, you know, my mom's huge into organic food these days, and I'm like, you know, it's like 3 times more expensive though, right? I don't know, but that's what the subsidy exists for. Make it cheaper so that people will be incentivized to buy it, because simple law of economics, if something is lower in price, consumption of that good or service will go up. Government subsidies are one way to do that. Taxes are the exact opposite effect, by the way, if you were curious. You tax something, and the prices go higher, you have the inverse effect. When prices go higher, it is consumed less. Which is why taxing something like CO2 works, because you're applying a tax to provide an incentive for people not to use or to produce carbon dioxide, right? So you tax the things you don't want in a country, and you subsidize the things you do want. Now, of course, those distortions of the free market mean that the prices and the needs of the economy aren't very well conveyed, and maybe you create some inefficiencies, but that's the basic premise. It's one of the reasons we subsidize health food rather than just taxing it. Which actually comes down to the question, is it better to tax something or to subsidize the alternatives? Ultimately, I don't think it really matters that much. I think that the exact impact will depend on the individual circumstance. But either way, you're distorting the free market and will create problems no matter what you do. The question is, are you going to be spending government money and going into debt, or are you going to be taking income directly out of the pockets of the people? That's just the question to ask. But, you know, I don't know. Either way, let's move on, though. So, yeah, one thing I did want to do, we could also pass the... Did I pass the armed services thing last time? Hang on. Law and order, is it under that? Oh, I did! National Armed Forces Week. Okay. I was thinking, let's make the Patriots happy, but... Because, you know, the Patriots just won the Super Bowl. No, but I was thinking we want to make Patriots happy so I can get more political capital. But okay, we apparently already did that. Why don't we pass the Keep the Country Tidy campaign? That'll improve the environment a fair bit. And actually, this kind of ties into the point I was making a little bit ago. So the environment actually goes up by about 4.28%, which is more effective than the carbon tax. So it turns out that persuading people to change... Excuse... What the heck? Multigrains in my throat. Hello. No, what I'm trying to say is, it turns out that persuading people to change their behavior might actually be as effective or more effective while also being cheaper than coercing them to change their behavior through taxes, through regulations, through laws, and stuff like that. Which actually I think is a very interesting distinction that will change your entire view of politics. Is it better to persuade people to change or to force them to change? What's better, the carrot or the stick? You know? And really, I think that is one of the big distinctions between whether or not you are more on the liberal/libertarian side or more of the authoritarian persuasion in politics. It's just something to consider. Do you think that if people aren't doing what you want them to do, are you forcing them to change it? Are you coercing them? Because whenever you apply the government to something like this, what you're basically doing is saying, hey, we've passed these laws, you have to change your behavior. If you don't change your behavior, we're going to send the police to go and, you know, fine you. If you resist, we take you to jail. Basically, we send the men with guns to go and force your change in your behavior. And that's personally one of the reasons I'm a bit more on the libertarian side of things as opposed to authoritarian. Since I don't think there are very many things that we can morally justify sending the men with guns to change your behavior. Some things, sure, whenever you're violating the natural law, theft, murder, stuff like that, yeah, absolutely. But, you know, what about silly regulations like you have to use this certain energy-efficient light bulb? Really? If I don't comply, what are you going to do? Oh, well, we'll fine you. Okay, and what if I refuse to pay because it's a stupid thing to fine me over? Well, we send the men with guns. See, and that's kind of the big question. It's like, there are some things that are legitimate to force, I think, on people. Namely, when they are violating somebody else's rights. That's the purpose of government. But besides that, I don't know, guys. I definitely lean a bit more libertarian on that. I definitely do. But anyways, okay, so we're going to go ahead and pass environmental stuff. Let's also pass free parenting classes, make the parents like me. I'm just trying to shore up some important voter demographics because we are going into an election. I want to make sure that things go well for me. Anything else that we care about doing? Tech grants. Tech grants is something we can do. That's going to cost us a bit of money and improve our GDP and technology substantially. Actually, I should have done tech grants a bit earlier. Now, here's the downside about tech grants. They're going to eliminate religious membership, right? I mean, we have creationism instead of evolution, which, by the way, yes, I did see that some people were causing a bit of a... Or some people were not necessarily happy with that, but it did spark a few conversations in the comment section a while back, and that's fine. But either way, so we were increasing our religious membership substantially. Now we're going to be reducing it back down a lot, 20%. But capitalists are thrilled with these grants, you know, encouraging investiture in the right kinds of technologies that improve the economy and make it more efficient. Productivity goes up, which is fantastic. It's actually a really good way to combat the uncompetitive economy. And unemployment goes down, which has always still been an issue in Australia. So just passing something like that is amazingly useful to us. So let's go ahead and do that. Liberals still want me dead, how dare you. But we did get a scientific discovery. I feel like I'm in Dexter's laboratory. This is an ingenious scientific discovery. I didn't say that right at all. That was a terrible accent. No, it's awful. Don't applaud me. For years, we have wondered why those scientists spend so much time in underground tunnels mumbling about quarks and mesons, blah, blah, blah. Patriots are happy because our nation did something awesome, and the GDP goes up. More investiture. Budget surplus of $10 billion. And 80% of the vote campaign speeches are available to me now, which is something we may want to do at some point. How is productivity looking right now? Productivity is actually quite low. I need the productivity to be better than this. Our GDP is being dragged down by our low productivity. And one thing we could do, it's pretty expensive, but one thing we could do that would help. So if we go to welfare, is it childcare provision? There's two childcare related things. Looking for the baby. There you are. Child benefit? Okay, yeah, this is not the one I want. So child benefits are basically just providing tax incentives and, you know, stuff for that for people who have children. But child benefits, provisions, there we go. Child care provisions are basically government subsidies for, daycare, basically, so that parents are more able to go and work without worrying about their children. Basically, no more stay-at-home moms. Everyone goes out there and works. They don't have to worry about it because we have tax incentives for daycare. That's the concept behind it. Very much a distortion of the free market. Very expensive. Parents are thrilled. And unemployment goes down a lot because women are going out and getting jobs. Productivity takes a huge jump of 10%, which is absolutely amazing. And a lot more people feel comfortable becoming parents because there's no consequences. Who needs to stay home and take care of the kids? It's not quite how that works. We are perceived as being more compassionate, by the way, which is going to be very good for us as far as the election is concerned as well. So that's something, I suppose. Anything else I really want to pass right about now? Anything else that really matters that much? I can think of a few things that would be good, but really important. I don't know. What about those speeches we were talking about? That's a quarterly report. That's not what I wanted. Electioneering. Speeches. No, don't give me the frickin' tutorial. Manifesto? I thought you said I could get us... Oh, I need more political capital. I need 10? Wait. It doesn't actually say how much we need. You know what? Let's just move on to the next turn. Screw it. I can't remember. The Liberals still want me dead, but... Oh no! The water shortage developed. I told you it was going to happen. I told you. Alright, well, food prices are starting to go up. I'm not going to touch this for a bit. I mean, food prices going up is really going to hurt the poor and a lot of stuff, but we can't afford to spend like $50 billion on this. We'll have to raise taxes so much that it's going to hurt the poor even more. I'd rather just live with it, at least for now. And hopefully over time, as we improve the environment, it'll go down. We'll see. Credit rating did get upgraded, though, to a AA, which is nice. We have a small surplus of just about $4 billion, despite the fact that we just spent a lot of money on childcare and stuff. Having still got a surplus means we're doing fairly well. And yes, indeed, the GDP is definitely going up. How's immigration looking? Yeah, it's still going up. Gotta be concerned about that, but that's not something I'm going to worry about right about now. Anyways, okay, let's actually go ahead and take a look at some of the things we can do as far as manifestos and electioneering and speeches. We could do some speeches. If you guys aren't familiar with how this works, basically, you choose like 3 sections of a speech to try and make certain voter demographics happy at the expense of others, or in this case, just make the religious happy. And then you spend some, sound bites, actually, is what they're called. And then you spend 12 political capital in order to do that. So like these 3, for example. And if you don't like them, just, close this thing down, and then just keep shuffling through, and oh look, they've all reset. So you can keep going until you find like the perfect combination that makes you super duper happy. That said, aside from the liberals hating me, I don't actually feel that threatened by very many people, at least not in the vote. Our popularity is pretty dang good, so let's instead worry about like the manifestos. Now these aren't necessarily important, I don't have to do this, but they don't cost a lot. They do make people happier. Basically, these are campaign promises that we expect people to follow up on. Kind of like how Donald Trump has been following up on a lot of his campaign promises in the last 2 weeks, even though no one thought he would, including myself. But he's doing it. I do find it hilarious, by the way. Donald Trump makes a bunch of promises and says, this is what I'm going to do if I become president. And then he actually does it, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, he's actually doing it. We don't expect this of any of our politicians. I'm not saying what he's doing is great, but I will say it's funny that this is such an unusual concept to us. So I don't know. Do we want to promise, for example, to improve the equality of our people? Sure, I'll make this pledge. Socialists like it. I get an extra 5% boost with them, which is not inconsequential. That's not bad. That's pretty decent. But I don't see a lot of other manifestos here that I really care about, such as improving like the GDP and stuff like that. Those are manifestos I would like. Can we actually cycle through manifestos? No. Interesting enough. So I've played Australia before, and I've actually had a completely different set of manifestos. I'm kind of curious what determines which ones are available to us. We could raise up private prisons and stuff? Nah. Armed police, cut it? Meh. I mean, these are just things that people would like to see. I'm not going to make any more promises beyond that. Let's save our 31 political points. What do we want to go for? Now, one thing I could do is go for something like car emission limits. 13? It's a lot of political capital to make that work. How much would we be left with? We'd be left with 18 political capital. That's exactly how much I need in order to do the healthcare, right? Okay, let's go ahead and pass the car emission limits. We're going to max this out. Now this is one of the big heavy lifters for improving the environment. We're talking 24% improvement in the environment just from this. CO2 emissions go down as well. Car usage goes down, which has a double whammy effect of improving the environment and reducing CO2 emissions and traffic. The only thing that happens is that motorists are unhappy and they pay more money. That's it. That's the only difference. It's a fantastic policy and it costs practically nothing. There's really very little reason not to grab this unless you really, really want the motorists to love you. But to be honest, as you continue to improve the GDP, odds are pretty good you're going to be moving toward a commuter-based economy anyway. So I see no reason not to. Our environment is like really taking a plummet, but you increase it by like 20%, so it's up here. That's great. That's amazing from one policy. Totally worth it. We're going to do that. Let's also improve the stupid freaking state healthcare. Gosh dang you, I hate you so much. We'll improve you to about here. Try to reduce it. Well, actually, before we do that, let's take a look at the event. Okay, it's actually slightly ticking down. If I technically let it go, it eventually would fix itself. But we can't afford a 26% health stab or health penalty like that. It's just too much. That's hurting our productivity. That's hurting our GDP a lot. So we'll improve it ever so slightly. Not much. We're talking like a 3% or 4%, almost 4% improvement for the doctor strike. So mostly I'm just mad because I'm spending a lot more political capital, but oh well. That's all we got. We are down to 0 political capital. It is definitely time to go into the election. Let's see who wins. I think it's going to be a landslide. Yep, the popular nationalists are amazing. Everyone wants to be a populist these days, or a nationalist socialist, as some people have been pointing out. We won 87% of the vote. 100% turnout for everybody because mandatory voting makes it very easy to predict how the elections are going to go. We are perceived quite well, which improved things for us. Our opponents spent a lot more money than we did, And our ministers actually were more of a hindrance in the election than they were helping us. But whatever, it's fine. We only spent $33 million. I mean, that's practically nothing for a campaign. In American standards, that's like a pittance. That's like a state election campaign. But we won in Australia, spending less money and by a landslide. Let's take a look at the breakdown. How'd we do? Okay, first off, there are no ethnic minorities in Australia, despite the fact that we have increasing immigration. None. None whatsoever. Which actually makes sense, because my understanding is that Australia does have an actual law that illegal immigrants are basically all turned away, period, in Australia. You come over here as a refugee in a boat, in a little dinghy boat, and they send you right back home on your dinghy boat. And that's what Australia does. I'm actually kind of surprised that so many people are upset about the United States and our refugee policy and not causing a huge stink about Australia. You'd think that Australia would get a lot more national attention, but they don't. At least not in American media. I don't know how it is in Australia itself. I know I got some Australian voters. What do you guys think of that? Anyway, I don't know. Liberals actually still voted for us primarily because, as you know, people can be a part of multiple different voter demographics, and turns out their socialist selves loved me enough to overcome their hatred of my illiberalness. Illiberalness? Is that even a word? I don't know. But we did pretty good. Across the board, I would say. Changes. Health's improved, education, crime is... This is one of the big ones right here. Crime was terrible to begin with. Now it's great. Poverty's going down. Yeah, the environment is kind of taking a hit. That is the downside of improving the GDP, but our technology's doing really well. Productivity has gone down, surprisingly. I kind of expected this to go up a bit more. I think it's because we maxed out on employment, and as a result, people were not competing as much for their jobs because, well, no, wait. I'm trying to remember. Maximum employment actually reduces productivity, right? I think so. Because people are so sure that they're so secure in their jobs that they just produce less and feel like they have to compete less with each other. I don't know. There's a rationale for it behind there somewhere. Racial tension. GDP has gone up by 50%. Not bad. Look at me go. The rich are getting richer, and the middle class is getting squeezed, but the poor are doing pretty well. And a 4% reduction is actually not terrible considering. So, yeah, I mean, this is looking pretty good across the board. Not bad. Not bad at all. So we're going to go into our next term. There was another failed assassination attempt. That kind of figures. But I think we're going to do fine. Let's go into year 6 and start our second term in office. We're going to try to get rid of the stupid doctor strike, which is finally going beyond the stop trigger, so that's good. We're trying to improve the environment. We're going to see if we can't get rid of some of these other events like alcohol abuse and stuff like that. Maybe tax the alcohol a little bit. And, yeah, I mean, I don't know. At this point, I think once you win your first election, I feel like it's pretty smooth sailing from here. Unless you really, really screw stuff up, we shouldn't have any problems with our next election for the rest of this next term. So let's just make Australia as strong as possible, and we'll finish the series out strong that way. Thank you all very much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed. If so, then be sure to hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.